My son asked me to go to the park with my granddaughter. When we arrived, he called, breathless, "Mom, get out of there now." "Why?" He said, "There's no time for questions." I ran without understanding anything. As I got into the car, I stopped breathing. What I saw shouldn't have been there. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The morning sun cast long shadows across my kitchen table as I spread jam on toast for my granddaughter Selena. At 63, I'd learned to appreciate these quiet moments. The clink of spoons against ceramic, the hum of the refrigerator, the weight of companionship even in silence. Selena, just turned 7, swung her legs beneath the chair, her dark curls bouncing with each movement. "Grandma, can we go to the park today?" she asked, her eyes bright with hope. I smiled. "We'll see what your daddy says, sweetheart." My phone buzzed almost immediately, as if summoned by her wish. My son Alan's name lit up the screen. "Mom, can you take Selena to Riverside Park this morning, around 10? I've got an emergency meeting that just came up." Something in his voice struck me as odd. A tightness, a forced casualness. But Alan had been stressed lately. His real estate development firm was in the middle of several big deals, and his wife Violet had been acting particularly cold toward me in recent weeks. I attributed his tension to work and marriage troubles. "Of course," I said. "We'd love to go." "Great. The park. 10 o'clock. I really appreciate it, Mom." He hung up before I could respond, which was unusual. Alan always said goodbye, always asked how I was doing. But I pushed the unease aside and focused on Selena's delighted squeal. 2 hours later, we arrived at Riverside Park. The old playground sat at the edge of town, backed by dense woods and bordered by the slow-moving river that gave it its name. I'd brought Alan here when he was Selena's age, pushed him on these same swings, watched him climb these same structures, though they'd been repainted and reinforced over the decades. Selena ran ahead toward the swings, her pink backpack bouncing. I followed at a slower pace, my knees reminding me of every year I'd lived. The park was surprisingly empty for a Saturday morning. Usually, at least a dozen families would be scattered across the grounds. Today, I counted only 2 other adults, a man in a dark jacket near the parking lot, pretending to look at his phone, and a woman with oversized sunglasses sitting on a bench too far from the playground to be watching any child. The first prickle of unease crept down my spine. I settled onto a bench near the swings, keeping Selena in sight. She pumped her legs, flying higher, her laughter cutting through the morning air. I pulled out my own phone to check messages, and that's when I noticed something strange. A text from Alan, sent 20 minutes ago, that I'd somehow missed. "Remember exactly 10:00. Don't be late." Why did the time matter so precisely? We were already here. Then another text came through. "Stay alert. Watch for a black SUV." My heart began to race. I looked up, scanning the parking lot. There, a black SUV with tinted windows, parked at the far end, engine running. I could see the exhaust in the cool morning air. "Selena, honey, come here for a second," I called, trying to keep my voice steady. She ignored me, lost in the joy of the swing. The man in the dark jacket was walking toward us now, hands in his pockets. My mouth went dry. The woman on the bench had removed her sunglasses and was staring directly at me. My phone rang. Alan. "Mom." His voice was breathless, panicked, a tone I'd never heard from my usually composed son. "Mom, get out of there now. Take Selena and run to your car. Don't ask questions. Don't look back. Just go." "Alan, what?" "There's no time. Please, Mom, just trust me. Get Selena and run. Now." The line went dead. Every instinct screamed at me to grab my granddaughter and flee, but my mind also demanded answers. What was happening? Why were we in danger? Was this some kind of terrible mistake? The man in the dark jacket was 50 feet away now, his pace quickening. "Selena," I shouted, standing up. "Come here right now." Something in my tone cut through her play. She jumped off the swing and ran toward me, her face puzzled. I grabbed her hand and started walking quickly toward the parking lot, not running yet, not wanting to alarm her completely, but moving with purpose. My silver Honda was parked near the entrance, thank goodness, not far from where we stood. "Grandma, What's wrong? Selena asked, her small hand tight in mine. Nothing, sweetheart. We just need to go home early. The man changed direction, angling to intercept us. The woman from the bench was standing now, speaking into a phone. Actually, Selena, we need to run. Can you run fast like a race? Her eyes widened, but she nodded. We ran. My knees protested. My breath came in gasps, but fear pumped adrenaline through my veins. Behind us, I heard the man's footsteps, faster now, no longer pretending casual interest. Hey, wait, he shouted. I didn't wait, didn't turn around. Just kept pulling Selena forward, her little legs pumping as fast as they could. We reached the car. My hands shook as I fumbled with the key fob. The doors unlocked with a blessed beep. I practically threw Selena into the back seat and dove into the driver's seat, locking the doors immediately. The man was 20 feet away when I started the engine. "Ma'am!" he yelled, holding up something. A badge? A wallet? I couldn't tell and didn't care. I reversed hard, tires squealing, then threw the car into drive and accelerated toward the park exit. In my rearview mirror, I saw the man speaking urgently into a phone. The black SUV with tinted windows began to follow us. "Grandma, you're scaring me," Selena whimpered from the back seat. "It's okay, baby. Everything's okay. We're just going home." But everything was not okay. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The SUV maintained a steady distance behind us, not gaining, but not falling back either. Following. I grabbed my phone at a red light and called Alan. It went straight to voicemail. "Alan, what in heaven's name is going on? There are people following us. We're heading to my house. Call me immediately." The light turned green. I pressed the accelerator, taking turns through residential streets, trying to lose the SUV. It stayed with us, a dark shadow in my mirror. Selena was crying now, and I felt like the worst grandmother in the world, but I couldn't stop to comfort her. I had to get us somewhere safe. I pulled into my driveway with a sharp turn, jumped out, and yanked Selena from the back seat. We ran to the front door, another eternity of fumbling with keys, and finally burst inside, locking and bolting the door behind us. The SUV pulled up to the curb in front of my house and stopped. I pulled Selena into the kitchen, away from the windows, and held her trembling body close. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're safe now. We're home." But were we safe? What had Alan gotten us into? Why had he sent us to that park, then told us to flee? Through the front window's sheer curtain, I watched the SUV. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out. Tall, professional-looking, wearing a navy blazer. She walked up my front path with confident strides. The doorbell rang. Selena jumped in my arms. "Mrs. Butler?" A woman's voice called through the door. "Mrs. Natalie Butler? My name is Agent Patricia Reeves with the FBI. We need to talk about your son." The FBI. My son. The words hit me like physical blows. I sank onto a kitchen chair, still holding Selena, my mind reeling. What had Alan done? The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. "Mrs. Butler, I know you're frightened, but we're not here to hurt you. We need your help. Your son is in serious danger, and so are you and your granddaughter. Please, let me explain." I looked down at Selena's tear-streaked face, then back at the door. Every instinct told me not to open it, not to trust anyone. But the woman's words echoed in my mind. Your son is in serious danger. Alan, my boy. What had he gotten himself into? With shaking hands, I stood up, set Selena gently on the chair, and walked toward the front door. Through the peephole, I could see the woman holding up official-looking credentials, a badge and photo ID. My hand hovered over the deadbolt. How do I know you're really FBI? I called through the door. You can call the local FBI field office to verify my credentials. The number is... Tell me what this is about first. Tell me why you're here. There was a pause. When Agent Reeves spoke again, her voice was quieter, more serious. Mrs. Butler, has your son ever mentioned the name Victor Castellanos? The name meant nothing to me. No. What about Donovan Properties? Or Sierra Development Group? I frowned. Sierra Development is one of Alan's competitors. They've been trying to acquire the same land parcels his company wants. He's mentioned them. Mrs. Butler, 3 days ago, a federal prosecutor named James Wickfield was murdered in his home. He was investigating a massive fraud and money laundering scheme involving several real estate development companies. Alan's firm is one of them. And this morning, we received intelligence that there might be an attempt to use you or your granddaughter as leverage to force your son's cooperation or silence. The world tilted. I reached out to steady myself against the wall. That's why Alan sent us to the park, I whispered. He was… What? Setting up some kind of exchange? Using us as bait? We don't know what your son was planning, Mrs. Butler. But we do know that dangerous people are involved, and we need to bring you and Selena somewhere safe, right now. I looked back at my granddaughter, who sat on the kitchen chair with her arms wrapped around herself, eyes wide and frightened. Alan, my successful, ambitious son, what had he done? And more terrifyingly, what was he about to do? Mrs. Butler? Agent Reeves called through the door. I need you to make a decision. In approximately 3 minutes, another vehicle will arrive. The people in it won't be FBI, and they won't ask nicely. My hand moved to the deadbolt. This was the moment my life split into before and after. I turned the lock and opened the door. Agent Reeves moved quickly once inside, her eyes scanning every window, every corner. Another agent, a younger man with sharp features, appeared from the SUV and positioned himself near the front window. We have maybe 2 minutes, Reeves said crisply. Pack a bag for both of you, essentials only. Medications, identification, phone chargers, nothing else. Go. I stood frozen, my mind struggling to process the reality unfolding in my living room. Mrs. Butler, Reeves's voice softened slightly. I know this is overwhelming, but your son made choices that put you in danger. Right now, my job is to keep you alive. Please pack quickly. Selena clung to my leg, and that simple gesture snapped me into action. Whatever Alan had done, whatever trouble he'd created, Selena was innocent. I had to protect her. I grabbed Selena's hand and hurried to the bedroom, pulling a small duffel bag from the closet. Clothes, toothbrushes, Selena's favorite stuffed rabbit, my medications, our phones and chargers. My hands moved on autopilot while my mind raced. Alan involved in fraud? Money laundering? It seemed impossible. He'd always been ambitious, yes, driven to succeed, especially after his father died 5 years ago. But criminal activity? My son? Grandma, where are we going? Selena asked, her voice small. Somewhere safe, baby. Just for a little while. I zipped the bag and rushed back to the living room. Agent Reeves was on her phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. The other agent suddenly tensed at the window. Vehicle approaching, he announced. Black sedan, 2 occupants. Reeves's expression hardened. Back door, now. We hurried through the kitchen to the back door. Reeves opened it carefully, checked the yard, then motioned us forward. We ran across my small lawn to the alley behind the house, where another unmarked vehicle waited. Get in, Reeves ordered. I lifted Selena into the back seat and climbed in beside her. Reeves took the driver's seat, and we were moving before I'd even closed the door properly. As we turned the corner, I glimpsed the black sedan pulling up in front of my house. Who are they? I demanded, finding my voice. People who want to make sure your son keeps quiet about what he knows, Reeves said, her eyes on the rearview mirror. People who will use any leverage available. I don't understand. Alan called me, warned me to leave the park. If he's involved in something criminal, why would he warn me? Reeves met my eyes in the mirror. That's what we're trying to figure out, Mrs. Butler. Your son's behavior has been contradictory. He's been cooperating with certain individuals who are under investigation, but this morning's phone call suggests he might be having second thoughts. Where is Alan now? We don't know. He's not at home, not at his office. His phone is off. Panic clawed at my chest. What about Violet, his wife? Does she know about any of this? Something flickered across Reeves's face. Hesitation, maybe pity. Mrs. Butler, how would you describe your relationship with your daughter-in-law? The question caught me off guard. It's fine. A bit strained lately. Why? Has she ever asked you about your finances? Your property? Your will? A chill ran through me. Last month, she asked if I'd considered updating my will. She said at my age, it was important to have everything in order. I thought she was just being practical. Reeves's jaw tightened. And did you? Update your will? I have an appointment with my attorney next week. Why? What does Violet have to do with this? Before Reeves could answer, her phone rang. She answered on speaker. Reeves here. Agent Reeves, this is Director Morrison. We've got a situation. Alan Butler just contacted our office. He wants to make a deal. My heart leaped. He's alive? He's okay? The director's voice was grave. He's alive, Mrs. Butler. But he's demanding immunity in exchange for testimony against Victor Castellanos and the entire Sierra Development Network. He claims he has evidence of multiple federal crimes: fraud, money laundering, bribery, and conspiracy to commit murder. The prosecutor who was killed, Reeves said. Exactly. Butler claims he has recordings, documents, everything we need. But there's a condition. Let me guess, Reeves said dryly. He wants his mother and daughter protected. Partially. He wants them protected, yes. But he also insists that Natalie Butler be present at the initial meeting. He says she's the only person he trusts to hold one of the evidence packages, some kind of insurance policy. I felt dizzy. I don't understand. Why would he trust me with evidence? I don't know anything about his business. Maybe that's exactly why, Reeves suggested. If his wife is involved, and we suspect she might be, then you're the only family member who's truly clean. Violet? I shook my head. No, she's ambitious. Yes. And she can be cold, but she wouldn't be involved in murder. Reeves pulled the car into a parking garage beneath a nondescript office building. Mrs. Butler, we've been investigating this network for 8 months. Violet Butler has had lunch with Victor Castellanos 3 times in the past 2 months. She's made multiple trips to offshore banking locations, and her personal spending has increased by 400% in the last year, far beyond what your son's legitimate income would support. The words hit me like slaps. I thought of Violet's new jewelry, the luxury vacation they'd taken, the expensive private school they'd suddenly enrolled Selena in. She's been stealing from Alan's company? Worse. We believe she's been feeding information to Castellanos, helping him stay one step ahead of your son's legitimate business deals. And when the federal investigation heated up, we think she convinced Alan to get more deeply involved in the money laundering scheme, to protect their lifestyle, and possibly to protect her. I looked down at Selena, who had fallen asleep against my shoulder, exhausted from fear and confusion. This innocent child, caught in a web of greed and corruption spun by her own parents. What does Alan want me to do? The director's voice crackled through the speaker again. He wants you to meet him at a location he'll specify. He'll give you a package containing copies of all his evidence. You'll hold it as insurance. If anything happens to him, you deliver it to us. If the deal goes through, he gets immunity, and everyone walks away. And if I refuse? Silence hung heavy in the car. If you refuse, Reeves said quietly, Alan will likely disappear. The evidence disappears with him. Castellanos and his organization continue operating, and there's a very good chance that they'll still come after you and Selena, just to make sure there are no loose ends. So I have no choice. You have a choice, Mrs. Butler. It's just not a good one. The car stopped in an underground parking space. Reeves turned to face me fully. I need to be clear about the risks. If you agree to this meeting, you'll be walking into a situation we can't completely control. Alan is paranoid. Rightfully so. He won't agree to a location we've secured in advance. He'll choose somewhere public, somewhere he feels safe. But Castellanos has people everywhere. There's a real possibility of danger. And Selena? Selena stays with us, in protective custody. She'll be safe, I promise you. I looked at my sleeping granddaughter, then at Agent Reeves's serious face. Somewhere out there, my son was running for his life, carrying evidence that could bring down a criminal organization. The son I'd raised to be honest and kind had somehow become entangled in fraud and murder. But he'd also warned me to leave the park. He'd called the FBI to protect us. Somewhere inside the man who'd made terrible choices, my Alan still existed. When does he want to meet? Tonight, 7 p.m. He'll text the location 1 hour before. Then I'll do it. Reeves nodded, but her expression remained troubled. Mrs. Butler, there's one more thing you should know. This morning, someone cleaned out your son's personal safe deposit box at First National Bank. Whoever it was had the key and knew the password. Violet, I breathed. We're assuming so, which means she likely has whatever Alan was keeping there, possibly backup copies of the evidence he claims to have, or money, or both. The elevator doors opened to reveal a small, secure office space. Several agents moved about, working on computers and speaking in hushed tones. Reeves led us to a private room with a couch, and I carefully laid Selena down, covering her with a blanket one of the agents provided. I stepped back into the hallway with Reeves. How did my son get involved in this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Reeves leaned against the wall, looking suddenly tired. From what we've pieced together, it started small. A developer friend suggested some creative accounting to maximize tax benefits. Then it escalated. Offshore accounts to hide profits, shell companies to move money, partnerships with increasingly questionable individuals. By the time Alan realized he was in business with actual criminals, he was in too deep to get out safely. And the prosecutor who was murdered? James Wickfield was days away from bringing indictments. We think someone in Alan's firm tipped off Castellanos. Within 24 hours, Wickfield was dead, made to look like a home invasion. But we know better. My legs felt weak. I sank into a chair in the hallway. Did Alan have anything to do with the murder? We don't believe so. But he knew about it, and he didn't come forward. That makes him complicit. The full weight of it settled over me. My son, my only child, was involved in a conspiracy that had led to murder. Even if he testified, even if he got immunity, his life as he knew it was over. His career, his reputation, possibly his marriage, all destroyed. Mrs. Butler? A young female agent approached. We need to ask you some questions about your family's finances and your daughter-in-law's behavior over the past year. For the next 2 hours, I sat in a small interview room, recounting every conversation, every observation, every detail I could remember. Violet's expensive tastes, the tension between her and Alan, the way she'd started asking questions about my estate, my pension, my retirement accounts. She was planning something, I realized aloud. She was trying to figure out how much I was worth. We believe she and Castellanos had a backup plan, the agent said. If things went south, they'd need money to run. Alan's assets would be frozen, but yours wouldn't be. If you were to die, say, in a tragic accident, and if Violet was in your will, nausea rolled through me. She was going to kill me? Her own daughter's grandmother? We can't prove intent, but the pattern suggests she was at least considering all options. I thought of all the times Violet had encouraged me to babysit Selena, to take her places. Had she been setting me up, making Selena dependent on me so that my death would seem more tragic, less suspicious? No, I couldn't believe that. Whatever Violet had become, she loved her daughter. Didn't she? At 6 o'clock, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mom, it's me. Are you safe? My hands shook as I typed. Yes, with the FBI. Good. Location in 1 hour. Come alone. They can follow but stay back. Mom, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I love you. Tears blurred my vision. I showed the message to Reeves. He's scared, she said softly. And he should be. But we'll do everything we can to keep both of you safe. At 6:45, my phone buzzed again. The location. Riverside Park. The same park where this nightmare had begun just hours ago. It's a power play, Reeves said, studying the message. He's choosing familiar territory, somewhere he feels he has some control. But it's also risky. Too open. Too many sight lines. Maybe that's the point, I suggested. If it's open, it's harder for Castellanos' people to approach without being seen. Reeves looked at me with new respect. You might be right. We drove in silence toward the park, 3 other vehicles following at a distance. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the road. I thought of Selena, safe in the FBI office, probably confused and frightened. I thought of Alan, my boy, waiting in that park with evidence that could bring down a criminal empire or get him killed. And I thought of Violet, my daughter-in-law, who might be a monster, or might be another victim trapped in a nightmare not of her making. As we pulled into the park's lot, I saw Alan's BMW parked near the entrance. He stood beside it, alone, his hands in his pockets, looking small and vulnerable in the gathering dusk. "Remember," Reeves said, fitting me with a small microphone hidden under my collar. "We're listening. If anything feels wrong, say the word cardinal, and we'll move in immediately." I nodded, my mouth too dry to speak. I stepped out of the car and walked toward my son. Alan looked up as I approached, and my heart broke at the sight of him. He'd aged a decade in what must have been days. His face was haggard, his eyes hollow with fear and regret. "Mom," he whispered. And then the world exploded with light and sound as vehicles screeched into the parking lot from all directions. Not FBI vehicles, but black sedans and SUVs surrounding us, blocking all exits. Doors flew open, armed men emerged. And in the center of it all, a tall man with silver hair and cold eyes stepped forward, smiling. "Hello, Alan," Victor Castellanos said. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Time seemed to freeze. I stood between my son and a man whose cold smile promised violence, surrounded by armed men whose hands rested too casually on their weapons. The setting sun painted everything in shades of red and gold, beautiful and terrible. "Mr. Castellanos," Alan said, his voice surprisingly steady. "This is a public park. The FBI is watching. You can't what, Alan?" Castellanos interrupted, his tone almost friendly. "Can't have a conversation? Can't try to resolve a misunderstanding between business partners?" He spread his hands wide, the picture of reasonableness. "I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm here because you've been avoiding my calls, and we need to discuss certain discrepancies in our accounts." I felt the microphone hidden under my collar and remembered Reeves's instruction. Say cardinal and they'd move in. But Castellanos was right. We were in a public park, and his men hadn't actually threatened us. If the FBI moved now, what could they arrest him for? Having a conversation? "Mom, get back in the car," Alan said, not taking his eyes off Castellanos. "Your mother?" Castellanos turned his attention to me, his smile widening. "Mrs. Butler, how delightful to finally meet you. Alan speaks of you often. Such devotion to family. It's admirable, really." He took a step closer. "Though I wonder if he's told you the truth about his business ventures." "Stay away from her," Alan warned, moving to position himself between us. "The truth?" I found my voice, though it trembled. "You mean the fraud? The money laundering? The murder of a federal prosecutor?" Castellanos' smile never wavered, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or recalculation. "Ah, so the FBI has been filling your head with stories. Tell me, Mrs. Butler, did they mention that your son came to me? That he begged for my help when his company was drowning in debt? That every dollar he earned through our partnership went to maintaining the lifestyle his wife demanded?" I glanced at Alan, whose face had gone pale. "That's not," he started. "Isn't it?" Castellanos' voice turned sharp. "You came to me 3 years ago, Alan. Your company was failing. Your wife was threatening divorce. You needed money fast, and you weren't particular about where it came from." He looked back at me. "Your son is many things, Mrs. Butler, but a victim isn't one of them." The words hit like physical blows. I wanted to defend Alan, to insist Castellanos was lying, but the expression on my son's face told me there was truth in the accusation. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I believe in honesty between family members. And because I need you to understand something. Your son has taken something that belongs to me. Documents, recordings, financial records. I want them back. If he cooperates, everyone walks away. His wife keeps her lifestyle, his daughter keeps her father, and you," he paused meaningfully, "you get to keep your peaceful retirement." The threat was implicit, but unmistakable. "And if he doesn't cooperate?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Castellanos' smile turned sad. "Then we'll have to explore other options." Your son has a beautiful daughter, Mrs. Butler. 7 years old, I believe? Such a vulnerable age. Rage flooded through me, burning away the fear. You dare threaten my granddaughter? Not a threat. An observation. Children need protection. Stable homes. It would be tragic if Selena had to grow up without her father, or her grandmother. Alan's hand found mine, squeezing hard. A warning or a plea, I couldn't tell which. Where's Violet? I demanded suddenly. Where's my daughter-in-law? Does she know you're threatening her daughter? Something changed in Castellanos' expression. Just for a moment, a crack in the facade. He recovered quickly, but not before I saw it. Uncertainty. Violet understands business, he said. She understands that sometimes difficult decisions must be made. She's here, isn't she? The realization hit me like lightning. She's watching this right now. Castellanos said nothing, but his silence was confirmation enough. I pulled away from Alan and took a step forward, addressing the empty park, the darkening shadows, the vehicles surrounding us. Violet, I know you're here. Come out and face me. Mom, don't... Alan tried to grab my arm, but I shook him off. Your daughter is in federal custody right now, scared and confused. She doesn't understand why her grandmother took her away, why her father is missing, why her mother hasn't come for her. Is this what you want? Is this the life you're choosing for Selena? Movement in one of the black SUVs. The rear door opened, and Violet emerged. My daughter-in-law looked nothing like the polished, controlled woman I knew. Her perfect hair was disheveled, her designer clothes rumpled. But it was her eyes that shocked me most. They were wild, desperate, nothing like the cool calculation I'd seen so often before. You don't understand, Violet said, her voice cracking. You've never understood. You with your modest little house and your simple life. You have no idea what it's like to want more, to deserve more. Violet, please, Alan said, his voice breaking. This has to stop. Think about Selena. I am thinking about Selena. Violet's voice rose to a shout. Everything I've done has been for her, so she could have opportunities, go to the best schools, have the life she deserves. By stealing? By working with criminals? By putting her in danger? I couldn't keep the disgust from my voice. Violet's laugh was bitter. You think Alan is innocent? You think your precious son is some kind of victim? He knew exactly what he was doing. Every deal, every transaction, he signed off on all of it. Because you pushed him, Alan shouted back. Because you were never satisfied. Every time I said we had enough, you wanted more. Enough? Violet's voice dripped with scorn. Enough for what? To live like you, Mother Natalie? In a tiny house with a garden? Working until you're 70 just to keep the lights on? That was never going to be enough for me. The pieces clicked together in my mind with sudden, horrible clarity. You were going to kill Alan too, weren't you? Not just me. Both of us. The grieving widow and orphaned child. You'd inherit everything. Take whatever money you and Castellanos had hidden, and disappear. The look on Violet's face confirmed it before she even spoke. It didn't have to be this way, she said quietly. If Alan had just kept quiet, if he hadn't gotten cold feet about Wickfield... Wickfield? Alan's voice was a whisper of horror. You knew? You knew they were going to kill him? Violet's silence was damning. Alan staggered backward as if struck. My God, Violet, he had kids, he had a family, and you... He was going to destroy everything, Violet screamed. Everything we built. I had no choice. There's always a choice, I said, my voice hard. You chose greed. You chose violence. You chose to betray your husband and endanger your daughter. Castellanos stepped forward, his patience clearly exhausted. This is all very touching, but we've wasted enough time. Alan, the evidence. Now, or I stop being reasonable. His men's hands moved to their weapons. Not drawing them, not yet, but the threat was clear. Alan reached into his jacket pocket, and everyone tensed. He pulled out a small USB drive, holding it up so everyone could see. This is a copy, he said. Just a copy. The originals are somewhere safe, with instructions to be delivered to the FBI if anything happens to me or my family. Where? Castellanos demanded. Alan looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes. An apology, a plea for forgiveness, and something else. A warning. That's where you're wrong, I said slowly, understanding dawning. You don't have the originals, do you, Alan? You never did. Alan's expression confirmed it. I turned to face Violet. You took them. From the safe deposit box this morning. That's what was in there, not money, but the original evidence Alan had been collecting. Violet's face went white, then red. She looked at Castellanos, then back at Alan, trapped between them. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered. Yes, you do, I pressed. Alan told you where he kept it. Probably years ago when you were still pretending to be a team. He trusted you, and this morning you cleaned out the box. Where is it, Violet? Where's the evidence? Castellanos turned slowly to face Violet, and the look on his face made even his own men take a step back. You told me Alan had everything. You said you knew where all the evidence was. You promised me we could contain this. I do know. Violet's voice rose in panic. I took it from the box. I have it. Then where is it? Castellanos' voice was deadly quiet. Somewhere safe. Somewhere only I can access. That was the plan. I keep it safe, you keep us safe, and we all get what we want. The betrayal was complete. Violet had been playing both sides, keeping the evidence as her own insurance policy, her own ticket to safety if everything fell apart. You stupid woman, Castellanos said softly. Did you really think you could leverage me? I think... Agent Reeves's voice rang out across the park, amplified by a bullhorn. Everyone should freeze exactly where they are. This is the FBI. You are completely surrounded. Floodlights blazed to life from multiple positions around the park, illuminating the scene like a stage. FBI agents emerged from cover positions I hadn't even known existed, behind playground equipment, in the woods, on the roof of the park's facilities building. Castellanos' men reached for their weapons, but Reeves's voice cracked out again. Touch those weapons and you will be fired upon. Hands in the air, now. The standoff lasted 5 endless seconds. Then, slowly, Castellanos raised his hands. His men followed suit, and FBI agents swarmed forward, weapons drawn, shouting orders. I felt hands on my shoulders. Reeves, pulling me backward, away from the chaos. Alan was being pulled in another direction, agents surrounding him. Violet Butler! Reeves shouted. Show me your hands! But Violet was already running, sprinting toward the woods at the edge of the park, her heels kicked off, running like her life depended on it. 2 agents gave chase, but Violet had a head start and desperation driving her. Let her go, Reeves said into her radio. We've got eyes in the woods. She won't get far. I watched my daughter-in-law disappear into the darkness between the trees and felt a strange mixture of pity and fury. She'd destroyed so much, her marriage, her family, possibly her freedom, all for money and status she'd never truly needed. Castellanos was being handcuffed when he called out, Mrs. Butler. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Your son destroyed his own life, he said, smiling even as agents pushed him toward a vehicle. Ask him about Seattle. Ask him about the Davis property deal. Ask him what he did before he ever met me. The words lodged in my brain like splinters. Before he met Castellanos? What did that mean? I looked at Alan, who was being led to a separate vehicle, his hands cuffed in front of him. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Alan? I called out. What does he mean? What happened in Seattle? My son finally looked up, and the guilt in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. There was more. So much more. The secrets ran deeper than I'd imagined. I'm sorry, Mom, Alan said, his voice barely carrying across the distance between us. I'm so sorry. For all of it. For everything. Then he was in the vehicle and gone, and I stood in the glare of the floodlights, surrounded by FBI agents and the wreckage of my family, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. Agent Reeves touched my arm gently. We need to get you back to the office. There's still a lot to sort out. Selena, I said. I need to see Selena. Of course, she's safe. I promise. As we walked toward the FBI vehicle, a commotion erupted near the woods. Agents shouting, radio chatter exploding with urgent voices. Reeves listened to her earpiece, her face paling. Shots fired in the woods. Officer down. Suspect. Violet? My voice was a whisper. They found her. She had a gun. Mrs. Butler, I'm sorry. She's dead. The words didn't seem real. Violet, dead. Selena's mother, gone. How? I managed to ask. She fired at the agents. They returned fire. It happened fast. I thought of Selena, sleeping peacefully in the FBI office, unaware that in a single day she'd lost everything. Her father to prison, her mother to death, her life as she knew it destroyed forever. And I realized with crushing certainty that the secrets weren't over. Castellanos' words echoed in my mind. Ask him about Seattle. Whatever Alan had done, whatever had started this nightmare, I didn't know the full truth yet. Not even close. The FBI office felt like a tomb at midnight. Selena slept in my arms on a couch in Agent Reeves's office, her face peaceful, blissfully unaware that her mother was dead and her father was in a holding cell 3 floors below us. I stroked her hair gently, fighting back tears I couldn't afford to shed. Not yet. Not while she might wake and see. Agent Reeves entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She set one on the table beside me and sank into her desk chair with a heavy sigh. How do I tell her? I whispered. How do I tell a 7-year-old that her mother is gone? We have child psychologists who can help, Reeves said softly. People trained for this kind of trauma. You don't have to do it alone. But I'm all she has left now. The weight of that truth pressed down on my chest. Her father's going to prison, isn't he? Reeves was quiet for a long moment. That depends on what he knows and what he's willing to testify to. The federal prosecutor's office will decide if his cooperation warrants immunity or a reduced sentence. But yes, Mrs. Butler, one way or another, Alan will face consequences. I took a sip of coffee, barely tasting it. At the park, Castellanos said something about Seattle, about a property deal Alan was involved in before any of this started. What did he mean? Reeves's expression grew troubled. She opened a file on her desk, studying it for a moment before speaking. We've been digging into your son's background. 6 years ago, when Alan first started his development company, he worked on a major project in Seattle, a waterfront property development called Harbor Heights. I remember. He was so excited about that project. He said it was going to make his career. It did. But not the way you think. Reeves turned her computer monitor so I could see it. A news article from 6 years ago filled the screen. Harbor Heights developer cleared in bribery investigation. My blood ran cold. Bribery. The project required city council approval for zoning changes. 3 council members who initially opposed the project suddenly changed their votes. An investigation was launched, but no charges were ever filed. The evidence disappeared, and witnesses recanted their statements. Alan wouldn't. Mrs. Butler, Reeves interrupted gently but firmly. We have reason to believe that was the first time your son crossed a legal line. And we believe that's when Victor Castellanos first became aware of Alan, not as a struggling businessman needing help, but as someone willing to bend rules to get what he wanted. The room spun. I clutched Selena closer, as if her small body could anchor me to reality. You're saying Alan wasn't corrupted by Castellanos. He was already corrupt. I'm saying your son made choices, starting years before Violet's influence or Castellanos' involvement. The question now is, how far back does it go? A knock at the door interrupted us. A young agent entered, his face grim. Agent Reeves, we've completed the search of the Butler residence. You need to see this. Reeves glanced at me, then at Selena sleeping in my arms. Can it wait? No, ma'am. Mrs. Butler should probably hear this too. Reeves nodded, and the agent opened a tablet, showing us photographs. My son's home office, ransacked by FBI agents. But what caught my attention was a series of documents spread across Alan's desk. We found these in a hidden safe behind a bookshelf, the agent explained. Financial records going back 8 years, offshore accounts, shell companies, wire transfers. Mrs. Butler. He hesitated, looking at me with something like pity. Your name is on several of these documents. My mouth went dry. What? Reeves took the tablet, scrolling through the images. Her jaw tightened. Alan created an offshore trust in your name 5 years ago. Without your knowledge or permission. That's not possible. I would have had to sign. Your signature was forged. We've already confirmed it with a handwriting expert. Reeves looked up at me, her expression grave. Mrs. Butler, over the past 5 years, approximately $3 million has moved through this account. Money from Castellanos' operation, laundered through your name. The words didn't make sense. They couldn't be real. But I couldn't form complete sentences. I don't have $3 million. I live on a pension and Social Security. How could I not know? Because you weren't meant to know. Not until it was useful. Reeves's voice was gentle but relentless. If the investigation had uncovered this account before we understood the full picture, you would have looked guilty. You would have been the perfect scapegoat. Understanding crashed over me like a wave. Alan was going to frame me. His own mother. Or Violet was, the young agent suggested. These documents were hidden in your son's office, but we found her fingerprints on the safe. She knew about it. I thought I'd run out of ways to be hurt, but I was wrong. My son, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd loved and defended, had been willing to destroy me to save himself. There's more, Reeves said quietly. She pulled up another document on the tablet. We found a draft of a new will on Alan's computer, dated last week. In it, he leaves everything to Selena, with Violet as trustee until Selena turns 18. That's normal, I said, confused. Parents do that. Except there's a clause at the end. If you were to die before Selena reaches 18, your estate would also pass to Selena, again with Violet as trustee. He'd already drafted the paperwork to add himself as a beneficiary to your accounts, forging your signature on power of attorney documents. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. When? When was this supposed to happen? Reeves hesitated. We found searches on Violet's laptop. Untraceable poisons. Natural-looking accidents for elderly people. How long for inheritance to process? The searches date back 3 months. 3 months. They'd been planning to kill me for 3 months, and I'd had no idea. I'd baked cookies for Selena, had Sunday dinners with them, smiled and hugged them, all while they plotted my death. Selena stirred in my arms, and I held her closer. This innocent child who'd been raised by monsters. Mrs. Butler, Reeves said, I need to ask you a difficult question. Did you ever give Alan access to your financial accounts? Sign any documents for him? Give him power of attorney for any reason? Never. I've always handled my own finances. What about your will? Who's in it currently? Alan is my primary beneficiary. Selena is secondary. I was planning to update it next week to include more specific provisions for Selena, but I hadn't gotten around to it yet. Reeves and the young agent exchanged looks. What? I demanded. What does that mean? It means, Reeves said carefully, that if you had died in the next few days, before updating your will, everything would have gone to Alan. And with Alan potentially facing prison time, a good lawyer could argue that Selena, as his heir, should receive the assets. With Violet as trustee, of course. Except Violet is dead, I said. Yes. Which means their entire plan has collapsed. But Mrs. Butler, there's another problem. With your name on these offshore accounts, even though we know the signature was forged, the prosecution could still come after you. They could seize your assets as proceeds from criminal activity. Fear turned to anger. I did nothing wrong. We know that. But proving it could take months, possibly years. In the meantime, your accounts could be frozen. Your house could be seized. And Selena, Reeves's voice softened. Selena would likely go into foster care while everything gets sorted out. No. The word came out fierce, protective. No, she's not going into the system. She stays with me. She's lost enough. Then we need to move fast, Reeves said. I need you to cooperate fully with our investigation. Tell us everything you know about Alan's business, his associates, any conversations you overheard. We need to establish beyond any doubt that you were a victim, not a participant. I'll tell you everything, but I need something in return. Reeves raised an eyebrow. You're not really in a position to negotiate. I need to talk to Alan, tonight. Now. There are things I need to understand, and he's the only one who can explain them. That's not a good idea, Mrs. Butler. Anything he says to you could be used against him in court. His lawyer would never allow it. I don't care about his lawyer. I need to look my son in the eye and ask him why. Why he used me. Why he was willing to kill me. Why he threw away everything I taught him about right and wrong. My voice broke. I need to know if there's anything left of the boy I raised, or if that person is completely gone. Reeves studied me for a long moment. If I arrange this, you can't interfere with the investigation. You can't promise him anything or try to help him evade justice. I understand. And you need to wear a wire. Everything will be recorded. I looked down at Selena, still sleeping peacefully. She deserved to know the truth about her parents one day. And she deserved to know that at least one person in her family had fought for truth, even when it hurt. Fine. But only after Selena is settled somewhere safe with someone she trusts. She doesn't need to wake up and find me gone too. Reeves nodded and made a phone call. 20 minutes later, a kind-faced woman from Child Protective Services arrived with another FBI agent who specialized in child trauma. They woke Selena gently, and I held her while they explained in simple terms that she would stay with a nice family for a few days while Grandma helped the police with some important work. "But you're coming back, right?" Selena asked, her eyes wide and frightened. "You're not leaving like Daddy did?" I kissed her forehead, my heart breaking. "I will never leave you, sweetheart. I promise. Grandma will always come back." It was a promise I desperately hoped I could keep. After Selena left with the CPS worker, Reeves fitted me with a recording device and led me to the holding cells in the basement of the building. Alan sat in a small interview room, his hands cuffed to a metal table, his expensive suit wrinkled and stained. He looked up when I entered, and something in his face crumbled. "Mom, don't." I sat down across from him, my voice cold. "Don't call me that. Not yet. Not until you explain why you were willing to kill your own mother for money." Alan's eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe that." "I don't have to believe anything. I want the truth. All of it, starting with Seattle." He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then slowly, he began to speak. Seattle was supposed to be my big break, but the project was falling apart. The zoning board wouldn't approve, and without approval, my investors were going to pull out. I would have lost everything: my reputation, my career, my chance to prove I could be successful. "So you bribed them." A man approached me, said he could make the problem go away for a price. I told myself it wasn't really bribery, just facilitating business. Everyone does it. That's what I told myself. And that man worked for Castellanos. I didn't know that then. I found out later, after the project succeeded, after I'd made my first $1 million. He came back and said I owed him a favor. Then another favor. Then another. By the time I realized I was working for a criminal organization, it was too late to get out. When did Violet get involved? Alan's face twisted with pain. She always knew. From the beginning. She was the one who encouraged me to take the first bribe. She said we deserved success, that playing by the rules was for people without ambition. He laughed bitterly. I loved her so much, I believed her. I thought we were partners. And the offshore account in my name? That was Violet's idea. She said if things ever went bad, we needed someone to take the fall, someone trustworthy, someone who'd never be suspected. He looked at me with desperate eyes. But I never thought it would actually come to that. I never thought... Never thought what? That you'd have to actually sacrifice me? That's supposed to make it better? I was going to protect you. That's why I called you at the park. Why I warned you to run. When I found out Violet and Castellanos were planning to... He choked on the words. I couldn't let it happen. You're my mother. Despite everything, I couldn't let them hurt you. How noble, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You set me up to take the fall for your crimes, but drew the line at murder. Should I thank you? I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know what I've done is unforgivable. But Mom, please, you have to take care of Selena. She's innocent in all this. She needs you. I'm already planning to, despite you, not because of you. Alan broke down then, sobbing into his cuffed hands. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I destroyed everything. My marriage, my family, my life. And for what? For money we never even got to enjoy because we were always afraid of getting caught. I stood up, looking down at this broken man who used to be my son. Do you know what hurts most, Alan? It's not the money or the betrayal. It's knowing that I failed you somehow, that I raised you with values and morals, and somewhere along the way you decided they didn't matter. That success and money mattered more than integrity and family. You didn't fail me, he said through his tears. I failed you. I failed myself. I failed Selena. This is all on me. At least we agree on that. I walked toward the door, then stopped. Agent Reeves tells me you're offering to testify against Castellanos. Is that real, or is it just another manipulation? It's real. I'll tell them everything. Every deal, every transaction, every crime I witnessed or participated in. It won't make up for what I've done, but maybe it will keep other people from getting hurt. And Selena, what happens to her while you're in prison? I'm signing over full custody to you. My lawyer is preparing the papers now. I want her to have a chance at a normal life, away from all this, with someone who'll teach her right from wrong. His voice cracked. Someone who'll do a better job than her parents did. I nodded once, then left the room without another word. In the hallway, Agent Reeves was waiting. Did you get what you needed? I got the truth. Whether that's what I needed, I shook my head. I'll never be sure. For what it's worth, I think Alan does love you, in his own broken way. Love isn't enough, I said quietly. Love without integrity is just selfishness wearing a mask. Reeves's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, and her expression darkened. We have a problem. Castellanos' lawyer just filed a motion to have all charges dismissed. He's claiming the evidence is inadmissible because... She stopped, her face going pale. Because what? I demanded. Because the offshore account in your name? Castellanos' lawyer is claiming you were a willing participant in the money laundering, that Alan was acting on your orders, not the other way around. They're trying to flip the entire case. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. But that's insane. I had nothing to do with any of this. I know. But proving it just got a lot harder. Castellanos has resources we're only beginning to understand. Lawyers, judges, officials on his payroll. He's going to use every trick, every technicality, every lie to avoid prison. Reeves met my eyes. Mrs. Butler, this isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning, and you're about to become the center of a very nasty legal battle. So what do? You fight, with everything you have, because if Castellanos wins, he walks free. Your son's testimony becomes worthless, and you could end up in prison for crimes you didn't commit. I thought of Selena, already traumatized and fragile. She needed me. She had no one else. Then I'll fight, I said, my voice hard with determination. I've spent my whole life playing by the rules, being polite, letting other people take advantage of my kindness. But I'm done with that. If Castellanos wants a war, he'll get one. Reeves smiled grimly. Good. Because something tells me you're tougher than anyone gives you credit for. She had no idea how right she was. 3 weeks later, I sat in a federal courthouse conference room, surrounded by lawyers, FBI agents, and the weight of everything I'd lost. The mahogany table stretched before me like a chasm, and across it sat Victor Castellanos, impeccably dressed, his silver hair perfectly styled, looking more like a distinguished businessman than a criminal facing life in prison. His legal team, 5 attorneys in expensive suits, filled one side of the table. On my side sat Agent Reeves, a federal prosecutor named Catherine Walsh, and my own attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Diana Lofgren who'd come highly recommended and was working partially pro bono after hearing my story. The past 3 weeks had been a nightmare of depositions, interviews, and mounting evidence that threatened to bury me. Castellanos' lawyers had been relentless, painting me as a criminal mastermind who'd manipulated her naive son into laundering money through his real estate business. They'd produced witnesses, paid liars, I was certain, who claimed to have seen me at meetings I'd never attended, heard conversations that never happened. My bank accounts were frozen. My house had a lien on it. And Selena, my precious Selena, was in temporary foster care while the courts decided if I was fit to raise her. But I hadn't been idle these 3 weeks. Neither had Agent Reeves. "Let's begin," said Judge Morrison, who was presiding over the pretrial proceedings. "Mr. Castellanos, your attorneys have made serious accusations against Mrs. Butler. I trust you have substantial evidence to support these claims?" Castellanos's lead attorney, a shark named Robert Brennan, smiled confidently. "Your Honor, we have extensive documentation showing that Mrs. Natalie Butler has been the architect of this entire operation. Her son Alan was merely a pawn, following his mother's instructions to establish legitimate businesses that could be used for money laundering." "That's absurd," Diana said coldly. "Mrs. Butler is a retired schoolteacher who lives on a modest pension. The idea that she masterminded a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise is laughable." "Is it?" Brennan pulled out a folder. "We have bank statements showing that Mrs. Butler made multiple trips to the Cayman Islands over the past 5 years. Curious destination for a retired schoolteacher, wouldn't you say?" My heart sank. The Cayman Islands. I had gone there. Twice, on vacation. Trips that Violet had insisted on and paid for. Family bonding time, she'd called it. I'd thought she was being generous. "Those were vacations," I said. "My daughter-in-law arranged and paid for them. Convenient," Brennan said smoothly. "Your deceased daughter-in-law can't contradict your story. But we have evidence that during those vacations, you made visits to 3 separate offshore banks where accounts in your name held substantial sums." "I never visited any banks. Violet must have used my identification somehow, forged my signature." "So you claim. But the security footage we've obtained tells a different story." He slid a photograph across the table. It showed a woman entering a bank in the Cayman Islands. The woman wore a wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses, but the clothes were familiar. Too familiar. "That's not me," I said, but my voice wavered. The woman was my height, my build, wearing a dress I owned. "The timestamp shows this was taken during your visit to the islands 2 years ago," Brennan continued. "The woman presented identification in your name and accessed an account containing over $1 million. Diana leaned close to me. "Don't say anything else," she whispered. But I understood now. Violet had impersonated me. She'd worn my clothes, used forged identification, deliberately created evidence to frame me if everything fell apart. She'd been planning this for years. "Your Honor," Catherine Walsh, the federal prosecutor, stood up. "This is all very theatrical, but it doesn't change the fact that Mr. Castellanos is directly linked to money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. Mrs. Butler's alleged involvement doesn't erase his crimes." "No," Judge Morrison agreed. "But if Mrs. Butler was indeed the mastermind, it significantly changes the nature of Mr. Castellanos's culpability. He could argue he was working for her, following her orders." "Which is exactly what we're arguing," Brennan said. "My client was simply providing legitimate business services to what he believed was a legitimate real estate operation. He had no knowledge of any criminal activity until—" "That's a lie," I said, my voice stronger now. "And I can prove it." Everyone turned to look at me. Diana's hand shot out to stop me from speaking, but I gently pushed it away. "Mrs. Butler," Judge Morrison said, "you're not required to testify at this hearing." "I know, but I want to, because I'm tired of being painted as something I'm not. I'm tired of letting powerful men like Castellanos destroy lives without consequences." I reached into my bag and pulled out a small USB drive. Diana's eyes widened. She didn't know about this. Neither did Agent Reeves. "What is that?" Brennan demanded. "This," I said, placing it on the table, "is evidence that my daughter-in-law kept as her own insurance policy. Evidence she hid before she died. Evidence I found 1 week ago." That last part was a lie, but a necessary one. In truth, Agent Reeves and I had discovered the first USB drive 4 days ago, hidden in a safety deposit box that Violet had opened in Selena's name, but we'd kept it secret, waiting for the right moment. This was that moment. "Your Honor," Brennan protested, "this is highly irregular. Any evidence should have been disclosed during discovery." "The box was opened after discovery ended," Diana interjected smoothly, catching on to my play. We're disclosing it now, as required by law. Judge Morrison gestured to a court technician. Let's see what's on it. The technician inserted the drive into a laptop connected to a projector. The screen lit up with a video file. Violet's face appeared, recorded in what looked like the bedroom she'd shared with Alan. The timestamp showed it was recorded 2 months before her death. If you're watching this, Violet's recorded voice said, then something has gone wrong. Maybe I'm dead. Maybe I'm in prison. Either way, I need the truth on record. Everyone in the room leaned forward, transfixed. My name is Violet Butler, and for the past 5 years I've been working with Victor Castellanos to launder money through my husband's real estate company. Everything, every deal, every transaction was designed to move Castellanos' money and make it appear legitimate. Castellanos' face went pale. Brennan started to speak, but Judge Morrison silenced him with a look. My mother-in-law, Natalie Butler, knows nothing about any of this, Violet continued. I deliberately created evidence to frame her if things went wrong. I forged her signature, used her identity, even impersonated her at banks in the Cayman Islands. She's completely innocent. My hands trembled as I watched the woman who'd plotted to kill me absolve me of crimes I'd never committed. Why had she done this? Some last shred of conscience? Or just another manipulation? Another insurance policy? Alan knew everything, Violet said, her voice hardening. He was weak, but he wasn't stupid. He knew exactly what we were doing, and he went along with it because he loved the money and he loved me. But when the federal investigation started, he got scared. He wanted out. The video cut to a new scene, a recording of a conversation, audio only. I recognized the voices. Violet and Castellanos. We have to deal with Alan, Castellanos' voice said. He's becoming a liability. I'll handle him, Violet replied. But I want guarantees. I want protection, and I want my share of the money transferred to accounts he can't access. And the mother? The old woman? She's the perfect scapegoat. I've been setting it up for months. When this all blows up, every piece of evidence will point to her. Alan will be too traumatized by his mother's betrayal to think clearly. And I'll be the grieving daughter-in-law, raising our child alone. What about the prosecutor? Wickfield. A pause. Then Violet's voice, cold and clear. Do what needs to be done. I'll make sure Alan is nowhere near it when it happens. The recording ended. The room was silent. Castellanos shot to his feet. That recording is fabricated, digitally altered. My client never— Sit down, Mr. Castellanos, Judge Morrison ordered. His voice was steel. We'll have experts verify the authenticity of this recording. But if it's genuine, and something tells me it is, you're in considerably more trouble than you were 5 minutes ago. There's more, I said quietly. I pulled out a second USB drive. This one contains financial records that Violet kept. Every transaction, every wire transfer, every payment made to lawyers and officials to keep this scheme running. She documented everything, names and dates included. She wanted insurance that if Castellanos ever turned on her, she could take him down. Agent Reeves was staring at me with a mixture of respect and disbelief. Where did you find these? In the lining of Selena's favorite stuffed rabbit, the one she took everywhere, the one Violet gave her for her 6th birthday. I met Castellanos' eyes across the table. Violet knew exactly where to hide something no one would ever throw away or examine too closely. A child's beloved toy. I'd discovered it by accident, sewing up a small tear in the rabbit's seam. The USB drives had been carefully hidden in waterproof pouches, along with a handwritten note. For Selena, when she's old enough to understand the truth about her parents. V. Violet had left a roadmap to destroy everyone, including herself. Perhaps that had been her final act of spite. Or perhaps, in some twisted way, she'd been trying to protect her daughter from living with lies. Brennan was frantically whispering with his legal team. Castellanos sat rigid, his mask of composure finally cracking. Your Honor, Catherine Walsh said, standing. In light of this new evidence, the government requests that all charges against Natalie Butler be immediately dismissed. Furthermore, we request that Mr. Castellanos be held without bail pending trial. The evidence on these drives establishes him as a flight risk and a danger to witnesses. Agreed. Judge Morrison said. Mrs. Butler, all charges against you are dismissed. Your accounts will be unfrozen, and the lien on your property will be removed within 24 hours. He turned to Castellanos. As for you, Mr. Castellanos, bail is revoked. You'll remain in federal custody until trial. U.S. Marshals moved forward to take Castellanos into custody. As they cuffed him, he looked at me with pure hatred. You think you've won? He said, his cultured voice finally showing its venom. You think this is over? I have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, judges, politicians, people who owe me favors. I'll be out in 6 months, and when you are, I interrupted, my voice calm and steady, I'll still be here, taking care of my granddaughter, living my life, and you'll still be exactly what you are, a criminal who underestimated a 63-year-old woman. His face twisted with rage as the marshals led him away. After the room cleared, Diana turned to me with admiration in her eyes. That was brilliant. Waiting until the right moment to present the evidence, letting them commit to their lies before proving them wrong. Where did you learn to do that? I was a teacher for 40 years, I said simply. I learned very quickly how to spot a liar and when to call them out for maximum effect. Agent Reeves laughed, then sobered. There's still the question of Alan. His testimony won't be as crucial now that we have Violet's recordings, but the prosecutor's office will still want his cooperation. And he'll give it, I said. Not because he hopes for a lighter sentence, but because it's the right thing to do. For once in his life, Alan needs to do the right thing. What about you? Reeves asked. What happens now? Now? I picked up my bag, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Now I go get my granddaughter. I have custody papers to file, a home to restore, and a little girl who needs to know that despite everything her parents did, she's loved and safe. She's lucky to have you, Diana said. I thought of Selena, traumatized, grieving, confused, and the long road ahead of us. I'm lucky to have her. She's my second chance to raise a child right, and this time I won't fail. I walked out of that courthouse into the afternoon sun, feeling the weight of the past weeks lifting from my shoulders. I wasn't naive enough to think it was completely over. There would be trials, testimony, media attention. Alan would likely spend years in prison. Selena would need therapy and patience and more love than I sometimes felt capable of giving. But I'd survived. More than that, I'd fought back and won. As I reached my car, no longer impounded, returned to me that morning, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then something made me press accept. Mrs. Butler? An unfamiliar male voice. Yes? My name is Thomas Brenner. I'm an investigative journalist working on a story about organized crime and corruption in real estate development. I was at the courthouse today, and I heard about the evidence you presented. I'd like to interview you for my piece. I should have said no. Should have declined and driven away from all of it. But then I thought of all the other Violets and Elaines out there, all the people who thought they could get away with corruption because their victims were too polite, too scared, or too beaten down to fight back. Mr. Brenner, I said, I'd be happy to talk to you, but on one condition. What's that? You tell the whole story. Not just the crimes, but how they almost got away with it by targeting someone they thought was too old, too weak, and too insignificant to fight back. You tell people that age isn't weakness, that being kind doesn't mean being stupid, and that underestimating someone because they don't fit your idea of powerful is the biggest mistake you can make. There was a pause, then a chuckle. Mrs. Butler, I think you just wrote my headline. Good. Now let me go get my granddaughter. We can talk tomorrow. I hung up and started the car, pointing it toward the foster home where Selena waited. The fight wasn't over. It would never truly be over. But I'd learned something in these past weeks. I was stronger than anyone, including myself, had ever imagined. And that knowledge changed everything. 6 months later, I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where this nightmare had begun, preparing breakfast for Selena. The morning sun streamed through windows I'd recently had cleaned, and the house smelled of coffee and cinnamon rolls, Selena's favorite. So much had changed. Yet in many ways, everything had returned to a blessed simplicity. Grandma, Can I have extra frosting? Selena appeared in the doorway, her hair still messy from sleep, wearing pajamas covered in stars. She looked healthier now, the haunted look slowly fading from her eyes, though I knew the shadows would never completely disappear. Just a little extra, I said, smiling. We don't want you bouncing off the walls before school. She giggled, a sound that still felt like a miracle, and climbed onto her chair at the table, the same table where we'd sat that morning 6 months ago, before the park, before everything fell apart. My phone buzzed. A text from Agent Reeves. Verdict coming in today. Thought you'd want to know. The trial. Castellanos' trial had stretched for months, a media circus that I'd deliberately stayed away from after giving my testimony. Catherine Walsh had kept me informed, but I'd made a conscious choice not to let Selena's healing be interrupted by courtroom drama. Who's that? Selena asked, her mouth already rimmed with frosting. Just a friend letting me know about work stuff. Nothing important. I set a glass of milk in front of her. Are you excited about the art project at school today? Her face lit up. We're making collages about our families. Mrs. Peterson said we can use photos and drawings and anything we want. My heart ached. And what are you going to make? Selena thought for a moment, her expression serious in the way only 7-year-olds could be. I'm going to put you in the middle, because you're the most important. And then I'll put Mommy and Daddy on the sides because... She paused, struggling with concepts too big for her years. Because they're part of my family, but they're not here anymore. Is that okay? I knelt beside her chair, taking her small hands in mine. That's perfect, sweetheart. It's okay to love them and miss them, even though they made mistakes. People are complicated. The best we can do is remember the good parts and learn from the bad parts. Like you're teaching me? Like we're learning together. She hugged me, sticky fingers and all, and I held her close, grateful beyond words for this second chance. After I dropped Selena at school, the public school 3 blocks from our house, not the expensive private academy Violet had insisted on, I drove to the federal courthouse. I'd told myself I wouldn't attend the verdict, but I found I needed to see it through. Needed to look Castellanos in the eye one last time and know that justice, however imperfect, had been served. Agent Reeves was waiting outside the courtroom. She smiled when she saw me. I had a feeling you'd show up. Is Alan here? I asked. She nodded toward a side door. He testified last week. He's not required to be here today, but he wanted to come. Fair warning, he's hoping to see you. My relationship with Alan had entered strange territory. He'd pleaded guilty to multiple charges and was serving a 12-year sentence at a minimum security federal prison. He'd cooperated fully with prosecutors, providing testimony that had helped convict 3 of Castellanos' associates. He called me every week. Calls I sometimes answered and sometimes let go to voicemail, depending on how strong I felt that day. I'd taken Selena to visit him once, a month ago. It had been heartbreaking and necessary. Alan had apologized to his daughter, had told her that Daddy made bad choices and had to face consequences, but that he loved her and always would. Selena had cried. Alan had cried. I'd sat there, dry-eyed and watchful, making sure he understood that this access to his daughter was a privilege I could revoke if he ever hurt her again. I'll see him after, I said. If there's time. We entered the courtroom just as the judge was taking his seat. Castellanos sat at the defense table, his silver hair still perfect, his suit still expensive, but something had changed in his bearing. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the resigned look of a man who knew he'd lost. The jury filed in. 12 ordinary people who'd spent months hearing about fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and murder. They looked tired. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Morrison asked. We have, Your Honor, the forewoman said, standing. My heart pounded as she read the counts. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 16 counts in total, including conspiracy to commit murder in the death of prosecutor James Wickfield. Castellanos showed no reaction. His lawyers sat stone-faced. But I felt something release in my chest. A tension I'd been carrying for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe without it. Judge Morrison scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later, but everyone in that courtroom knew Castellanos would spend the rest of his life in prison. As the marshals led him away, Castellanos' eyes found mine across the courtroom. For a moment, we simply looked at each other, the criminal kingpin and the grandmother who'd helped bring him down. Then he smiled, just slightly, and nodded. A gesture of respect from one adversary to another. I didn't smile back, didn't nod. Just held his gaze until he was led through the door and out of my life forever. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Catherine Walsh had warned me this would happen, but I was prepared. I'd learned over these months that preparation was everything. Mrs. Butler, how do you feel about the verdict? Did you ever suspect your son was involved in criminal activity? What's next for you and your granddaughter? I paused at the top of the courthouse steps, Agent Reeves at my side. The journalist who'd interviewed me 6 months ago, Thomas Brenner, stood at the front of the crowd, his expression encouraging. I have a brief statement, I said, and the crowd quieted. 6 months ago, I was a retired teacher living a quiet life, looking forward to spending time with my granddaughter. Then I discovered that my son and daughter-in-law had been involved in serious crimes. Crimes that threatened to destroy not just their lives, but mine and my granddaughter's as well. The cameras clicked and rolled, but I kept my voice steady. I'm not here to celebrate anyone's conviction. My son is in prison. My daughter-in-law is dead. A federal prosecutor lost his life. Families have been destroyed. There's nothing to celebrate in that. I paused, gathering my thoughts. But I am here to say this. Criminals like Victor Castellanos rely on people being too afraid, too overwhelmed, or too convinced of their own powerlessness to fight back. They target the vulnerable, the elderly, the isolated, the people society has taught to be quiet and polite and compliant. My voice grew stronger. I'm 63 years old. I'm a retired school teacher. I have arthritis in my knees, and I need reading glasses to see the newspaper. By every measure society uses, I should have been an easy victim, but I wasn't. And do you know why? Because being old doesn't mean being weak. Being kind doesn't mean being stupid. And having lived a long life means I've learned a few things about patience, strategy, and knowing when to fight. Someone in the crowd started clapping. Then another. Soon, applause rippled through the gathering. The last thing I want to say is this. If you're in a situation where someone is trying to intimidate you, manipulate you, or make you feel powerless, you're not. You're stronger than you know. Age is wisdom. Experience is power. And sometimes the greatest strength is simply refusing to be what others expect you to be. I turned and walked down the steps, Agent Reeves clearing a path through the reporters. Behind me, I heard Thomas Brenner's voice rise above the others. Mrs. Butler's story will be published in next month's issue of National Investigative Review. It's a story everyone needs to hear. In a quiet corridor inside the courthouse, Alan waited, flanked by 2 marshals. He looked smaller in his prison uniform, diminished in a way that had nothing to do with physical size. "Mom," he said as I approached, "thank you for coming. I came for the verdict, not for you." He flinched but nodded. "I understand. I wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you. Of what you did, how you fought back. You don't get to be proud of me, Alan. You don't get to take any credit for my strength. Not after you tried to use my weakness against me. I know. You're right. I just meant—" He stopped, struggling. "I'm trying to say that watching you these past months, seeing you fight for Selena and yourself, has shown me what real courage looks like. What real integrity looks like. Everything I should have been and wasn't." I studied my son's face, looking for the boy I'd raised. He was in there somewhere, buried under years of bad choices and worse consequences. "Are you staying clean in there?" I asked. "Going to the counseling sessions?" "Every one. And I've been taking online business ethics courses, if you can believe the irony. Will you be better when you get out? Will you be someone Selena can be proud of? I'll spend every day trying. That's all I can promise." I nodded slowly. "Then I'll bring Selena to visit you next month. She needs to see that people can change, that mistakes don't have to define you forever. But Alan, if you disappoint her, if you hurt her in any way, I will make sure you never see her again. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am, I understand." "Good." I turned to leave, then stopped. Your father would have been disappointed in what you became, but he would have been proud that you're trying to make it right. I'm not there yet, but maybe someday I will be. His eyes filled with tears. That's more than I deserve. Yes, I agreed. It is. I left him there and walked out into the sunlight, feeling the weight of the past finally beginning to lift. That evening, Selena and I sat in the backyard of my small house. Our house now, legally and officially. The guardianship was finalized last month, making me not just her grandmother but her legal guardian until she turns 18. The garden was in full bloom, flowers I'd planted in the spring now reaching toward the sky. Selena was drawing at the picnic table, working on a picture of our house. She'd become obsessed with drawing lately. Her therapist said it was a healthy way to process everything she'd experienced. "Grandma?" she asked, not looking up from her paper. "Are we safe now?" The question pierced my heart. How many times had she asked it over these months? How many times would she need to ask before she truly believed the answer? "Yes, sweetheart. We're safe. The bad people are in jail. We're together. And I promise you, I will never let anyone hurt you again. What if more bad people come?" I set down my book and moved to sit beside her. "Then we'll handle them together. You know what I've learned, Selena? Bad people count on good people being too scared to fight back. But we're not going to be scared anymore. We're going to be smart and strong and careful. And most importantly, we're going to be together." She leaned against me, and I wrapped my arm around her small shoulders. "I miss Mommy sometimes," she whispered. "Even though she did bad things. Is that okay?" Of course it's okay. Love doesn't just disappear because someone makes mistakes. Your mother loved you very much, even if she showed it in confused and harmful ways. You're allowed to miss her and be angry at her at the same time. It's confusing. Yes, it is. Being human is confusing, but we'll figure it out together. We sat in silence for a while, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. My small house, my simple garden, my quiet life, none of it had changed. But everything had changed. I'd learned that I was capable of more than I'd ever imagined. That the qualities I'd always possessed, patience, observation, strategic thinking, quiet determination, were not weaknesses, but strengths. That 63 years of life had taught me lessons that no amount of money or power could buy. And most importantly, I'd learned that the greatest revenge against those who tried to make me insignificant was simply living well, raising Selena with love and wisdom, and refusing to be diminished by their expectations. My phone buzzed. A text from Diana, my attorney. "Castellanos sentenced to life without parole. It's finally over." I smiled and set the phone aside. It wasn't over. Trauma and healing didn't work that way. Selena would struggle with trust and loss for years. I would carry the scars of my son's betrayal. Alan would spend more than a decade behind bars. But the immediate danger had passed. The people who'd tried to destroy us had failed. And in their failure, they'd revealed something they'd never expected. That an ordinary woman living an ordinary life could possess extraordinary strength. "Grandma?" Selena said. "Can we plant more flowers next spring? Maybe some roses by the front door?" "Absolutely. We'll plant a whole garden. Roses and tulips and daisies. Whatever you want. And maybe we could paint the shutters? Mommy always wanted blue shutters." I felt tears prick my eyes. Despite everything, Selena was trying to honor her mother's memory in small, meaningful ways. "Blue shutters would be beautiful," I said. "We'll paint them together." As darkness fell and the first stars appeared, we went inside to prepare dinner. Just the two of us in our small house, building a new life from the ruins of the old one. I had no illusions about the future. There would be hard days. Selena would have questions I couldn't answer. My relationship with Alan would remain complicated and painful. The community would talk, and some people would always see me as the woman whose family had been involved in crime. But I'd survived. More than survived. I'd fought back and won. And in that small house with its blue shutters to be, its blooming garden, and its quiet rooms filled with hope instead of fear, I'd created something the criminals had never expected. A home where love and wisdom triumphed over greed and manipulation. The nightmare had ended. The healing had begun. And I, Natalie Butler, retired schoolteacher, grandmother, survivor, had proven that the most powerful weapon against evil wasn't youth or strength or money. It was simply refusing to be defeated. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.